Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Impact Farming Show. Today we have a special guest, a very special guest. Did I say that? Specially?
You said it perfect.
Okay. Dan Aberhart.
That's right.
Of Aberhart Ag Solutions. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Thanks
I am
for having
so
me.
excited to finally get
we
you
matched.
Here. We got it.
We're both in Manitoba, but we had to meet in Regina.
Yeah.
We finally got it.
Yes.
It's perfect.
We've been trying to do this episode probably about 4 different times, and it finally worked out. So excited to have you. Dan is a farmer. Dan is a business person through Aberhart Ag Solutions, and I'm going to get Dan to tell us about who he is.
Love it. I'd love to take more credit as an actual farmer than is due, but that wouldn't be completely right.
Okay.
I grew up on the farm at Langeberg, Saskatchewan. You know where that is? Between Russell and Langeberg. Okay. So technically our farm is on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border, 1 mile into Saskatchewan.
Oh wow.
So I have my Saskatchewanisms like Vico. We say Vico instead of chocolate milk. We say bunny hug instead of hoodie.
I know bunny hug.
We'd say power poles instead of hydro poles. Big distinction.
Really?
Culturally.
Wow.
Cheer for the riders. And the various other things that wouldn't be, suitable for a family show.
Yes.
But definitely a Saskatchewan boy. But I did end up going east. I ended up in Brandon in 2002, so we're both from Manitoba. But yeah, I grew up on the farm in Langeberg, and it's a very interesting dynamic, right? Growing up on the farm with the father who worked absolutely nonstop. And when I say nonstop, I'm not kidding. I remember him spraying fields in front of the house at 4 in the morning before going to work at the mine. He worked 15 years at the Rocanville mine. He worked 5 years for the crop insurance during the grip years. He worked for the John Deere dealership for 7 years.
Oh wow.
So growing up on the farm, we had about 1,500 acres for the majority of my youth, and we had every animal under the sun. We had dairy till I was 5. Okay. So basically seeing everything under the sun, growing up as a farm boy. But for me, my special talent wasn't being a jack of all trades on the farm. Okay. It took me a while to kind of discover my unique ability in the industry, and now in 2019 it's really fun to be able to perpetuate that with what we're doing with Aberhart Ag. But growing up on the farm, I wasn't a jack of all trades. Okay. I was a little bit of a rebel. We already talked about that.
We covered
a little bit of a rock and roll rebel growing up on the farm. And I think the other thing was the farm at the time when I grew up wasn't really viewed as a viable business, or wasn't at the scale it is today.
Oh yes.
It's kind of like you go off the farm, you work off the farm, and the farm was your side hustle, and it's how you build equity over time. Gotcha. And my dad built it from scratch, so he really hustled.
That's an accomplishment.
Right? I mean, my grandpa did a little bit of farming, but really it's my dad that did a lot. And then my brother took it to the next stage. So my brother was always the farmer in the family. He wanted to farm regardless of conditions, whether he'd farm on his own or whether he'd be farming for someone else. He just knew in his heart he would be farming. Okay. But I left the farm for about 5 years, and really around that time I was pretty certain I was going to be a rock and roll star. Okay. Which anybody who knows me now knows how far I got in that particular vocation. Well, it's either between me and Nickelback, essentially, who is, bigger. Yeah. Just kidding.
Hence why you're sitting here in Regina.
Yeah, and a bunch of people know me as they go by.
You are a celebrity. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with Nickelback, but anyways, that's not part of the scope of this interview. So, but I left the farm for a while. I came back to the farm, in heart and spirit, with a custom spraying business at the age of 23 when my first son was born, and I was going to university at the time, and I actually got roped into getting into the sales business before I completed my U of S. Okay. It was a 3-year Voc Ag program at the time. Okay. And I just spoke to the grads this this winter. And what I said was, if I get through this graduation speech, it'll be the first thing that I ever finished at the U of S. And they were sort of like, whoa, everybody was like, whoa. And I could see the dean was kind of like a little bit mortified, but she took it in stride. It was fun. But yeah, I got into retail. There I was, 23 years old, young family, selling to farmers. And of course, little did I know how much value that would have in my life and how much I would grow and the connections that I would make and the networking and what that would be worth, when we start a company up later in life.
Absolutely.
The connections that I made selling John Deere for over a decade.
You were working
Absolutely.
For? Okay.
Yeah, I started selling in Moosomin. Yeah, I started selling in Moosomin, and then I moved to Brandon shortly thereafter in 2002, and that's kind of where we been raised in a family, and I got 4 beautiful kids and a wonderful blended family in Brandon. My son's 20. I got a 19-year-old son as well, and a 16-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter. So it's like spanning the generations.
Lovely. Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I got into retail and I learned a lot the hard way. I remember driving around 30 below, hour and a half from the dealership on my own, trying to make a cold call to somebody who had like a nice set of hopper bottom bins.
Yes.
Because I'm like, you got to go where the big farms are and you got to get in with them.
Yes.
And being too terrified to drive in to the yard and going back to the dealership and just being like, what's going to happen here? And I basically had to have that self-talk, which you all have to have various times of our life for various reasons, and be like, Dan, you're either going to get in there, cold call, sell some iron, or you're going to go do something else. So I really had to work hard to get over that. But
I might actually be following along with this. I think anybody that's ever sold something, and especially when you start out,
it's incredibly hard.
And then you have different layers, whether you're introverted and extroverted, and cold calling, whether you're cold calling or knocking on doors or going up driveways, not an easy thing to do.
Well, I think that's a little bit of a theme in my life, and I think that's where a lot of our qualities of character that we aspire to come from.
Totally.
Is overcoming adversity, and it's all relative.
I sold cars.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
What did you sell? If you're going to sell me a car, what would you sell me?
I sold.
Tell me, I want to be sold.
Cars and trucks, actually.
Really?
I worked for Chrysler, so I sold Dodge. I sold Jeep. It was a variety, right? And I worked there in Steinbach, Manitoba, for a few years, and
Sorry about the Dodge.
I know. I got to be careful because some of our episodes are sponsored. So
you just lost all your Chevy fans.
Yeah.
Click.
Let's just scrap that whole brand. We avoid brands on this episode. No, talking about building character, right? Doing
Absolutely, it was huge.
Yeah.
And a network.
Yes.
And socialization. I mean, we were just talking about a funny story, but I'm going to do a plug here for Farm Forum, December 3rd, TCU Place in Saskatoon. We're going to be doing hashtag #AgRocks19, where we have industry folk come out, pick an instrument. Well, don't pick an instrument. Try and learn it before you come. I
hope you know it, yes, unless you're really, really courageous.
Unless you just got some moves like we never seen before, like you can do the moonwalk or something, that would probably qualify. But hopefully you've worked on your instrument a little bit before you show up. But
I'm playing the spoons.
That's right. We already talked about your role.
Not.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Okay.
Tambourine, I think you'd be a good tambourine. So we were talking about overcoming our fears. Well, I used to be too shy to play my guitar, which irked my dad to no end because he loved music. He was proud. He wanted to show off and kind of show him off. We all want to live vicariously through our sons, especially when they're rock stars like I am.
Of course.
But I wouldn't play at a campfire. I was too shy to play at a campfire, right? Well, fast forward all these years and these different stages of overcoming one's fear, and fear all being relative. Now we're going to have a really fun thing like hashtag #AgRocks19. So we're going to have an industry jam. We're going to be hosting it on the first evening of Farm Forum at TCU Place, Saskatoon, December 3rd. And so we're going to have cool people from the industry that, three-chord warriors or whatever. We'll have some amazing musicians there too, but some people that just maybe didn't get an opportunity to be on stage.
Nice.
Choose a charity. Try and raise as much money as you can for that charity. Make it part of the motivation or the impetus behind it, and get up on stage and rock out to the best of your ability for your own entertainment and everybody else's entertainment. We're not going to take it too seriously, but I think it's going to be a really fun fun evening.
That will be.
So, I mean, that's a real pleasure to be able to do things like that now on the front stage after having come through all these different levels of being afraid to go down someone's lane, being afraid to public speak, being afraid to be on camera. I had a Facebook memory that came up today, 3 years ago. No, it was 5 years ago when I did my first on-camera interview, Tracy. Probably somewhere around here, probably maybe even in this room, just to make the story more poignant. But even in this very room, 5 years ago, I might give my first video interview for a different company, for a different line of products, but I remember it being so terrified.
Really?
You know? Absolutely.
Yeah, and anybody that knows you now goes, you're full of it.
They don't believe me.
They don't
believe me that I used to be an introvert.
Right.
You know, but you grow this extroversion muscle, you grow this social media muscle, you grow this public speaking muscle, you know, you grow this interview muscle, one rep at a time. And, you know, for anyone who thinks it's not terrifying, initially at least, you're highly mistaken unless you've done it. Now it's fun.
Anything,
now it's like a superpower. It's really great.
It's anything.
Anything.
Any skill you learn in life, you're not good at it until you do it. You're nervous until you practice and practice, right?
Absolutely.
That first time you actually turn the camera on yourself and you're thinking all those thoughts that people are going to be judging you, etc., etc. It's hard.
It's really hard.
But now I can turn the camera. Do you know, I did a Facebook Live in my pasture with my cows last week.
I missed this. How come I don't have my notifications on when you're doing a Facebook Live at the pasture with your cows?
I don't know, but you got to update
I want a little bell to go off when that's happening, I'm telling you.
Yeah, you need them updated. It was pretty stellar.
With the cows, did the cows have any performance anxiety that you could discern?
No, they're naturals. Actually, they're actually just naturals. When I was giving the Facebook Live, I was talking about the divas that were surrounding me that wanted to be on camera. Hashtag crazy cow lady. Yeah. That's me.
So can I order a steak right through that Facebook Live? Is that a thing?
I should have. Why am I not on that? And you can order Sally.
I want Betty on my plate.
Oh, poor my girls.
We don't want anybody to know we actually eat the cattle, but
yeah, geez, thank God it's just farmers listening.
That's right.
Or else I'd get a few nasty calls here.
That's right.
Anyways, yes.
Right. So does that cover everything? Is that everything you needed to know?
No, absolutely not. We're just getting warmed up. I hope you have nowhere to go.
Oh, wow.
I've been waiting to have you on camera, and maybe you want to go there a little bit too, and we did, talking about doing those hard things, right? There's so many people in our audience, whether they want to advocate, whether they want to step out of their comfort zone and speak and talk about farming, whatever it is. I mean, you have traveled that journey and you've done such a great job. You've built a company and so many people know you. You have a podcast, you're doing Egg Rocks. That's crazy. Chat about that a little bit.
Well, let me go right back to the beginning on this because I think it is important and maybe, you know, if it helps somebody else.
Do.
Yeah, so for me.
I like real talk.
Well, I had this really weird situation in school. I like to read out loud. I actually read.
Really?
And I saw myself as somebody who could read well.
Nice.
I'm like, I can read well. Like, let me read. Like, when it's my turn to read. No, I loved reading.
A lot of people don't like reading out loud.
No, so I was really excited for a long time to read out loud because I thought I was really good at it in class. But I had someone close to me to intimate the story about how they had anxiety attacks during reading in class. And I didn't think anything of it until, of course, whatever period of time later I was reading in class. And the weirdest, most visceral reaction that you can ever possibly imagine. You never had an anxiety attack?
I haven't.
Okay.
Fortunately.
It's crazy. So what was happening was when I was reading out loud, my vision got blurry. This is like a physical reaction that I had no control over.
You don't.
It's like you're being circled by a saber tooth. Yeah. There's something in your brain saying there's danger or something. I don't know the mechanics. I'm not a.
You're right.
Okay, let's stop that portion.
No,
edit that out. I'm not a psychologist.
You
but here's what happens.
Yeah.
The vision got blurry. My throat got clogged up. I just felt like I was jumping around and I couldn't read the lines. I felt like I was choking. My palms were sweating. My heart was racing. I could barely get through it. And ever since that particular day in school, I would literally skip school to try and get away from that. I would go and ask the English teacher, "Are we reading in class today?" And if we were, I'd basically sneak out.
Did she catch on?
I don't know if I ever told any of my teachers in high school about that. And so that kind of translated to a fear of public speaking, and I forced myself to go to university. Like, I didn't want to be held back, but there's a bunch of critical points in my life. For example, I could have been managing the sprayer division at 24, 25 in Mooseman for John Deere at that time. There were some changes going on. I had an opportunity available. I didn't take that opportunity. You know why? Because I was terrified of conference calls that I have to speak on. I was terrified of running a meeting. I was terrified of having to give that speech. And so I was really good one-on-one, but as soon as there's more than like 3 or 4 or 5 people in the room, I started to choke. And I would, like every year we'd have like a practical, we'd come in, we'd bring all of our customers in, and we'd have a sprayer clinic. Okay. That was a big 1-year annual event, and every year I'd start feeling anxiety like weeks and weeks and weeks before that.
Totally.
Yeah. And
you knew it was coming up. The dread was building.
I was
that cloud.
Yeah. And I just didn't know how to get around it. Can you get around this with medication? Can you go up on a Himalayan mountain or something and do sort of like breathing exercises to get through this? Or tell me, Tracy, tell me, how do you get through this?
Meditate.
But so the breaking point was, I had this buddy, God bless him, he's a great guy. We were both selling away, and we're, kind of vying for the throne, like my boss's chair, right?
Okay.
And I was a little bit older. I was the guy who always returned everybody's phone calls. I put up the bigger numbers. I did the reps. I was Mr. Dependable. Yada yada yada. I built up a pretty good business, working with producers. I was very thankful, really grateful for the opportunity. But I had a pretty good business going. But this other guy, he didn't get back to you. He was kind of laissez-faire, like he'd be the guy, like we'd be kind of missing the flights because he was late. We were late dragging him to the airport and stuff like that. God bless him. Super charismatic. But it didn't matter all the other things that I had done. When we got together with like 50 of the top salesmen and managers in the organization I was working for, and everybody got an opportunity to express their opinions, well, guess who could express their opinion on the front stage and who couldn't? I couldn't. I choked. I could barely get out who I was, what I did, and what I thought about this new initiative. Meanwhile, here's my buddy, and everybody loves him. I mean, we all know who I'm talking about.
I was going to say, I hope we're not naming
Marty's. Did I say that? Party. But
I have business insurance in case I get sued, so
the internet's breaking.
We should be covered. Yeah, we should be covered.
So anyways, and I'm telling you a story here too, but but he was so charismatic and well spoken. Yeah. The facilitator in the room in the auditorium was like referring back to him, like bringing him back into the conversation. I should have used a pseudonym. I should have used his real name. But and I realized if I can't perform on the front stage, I'll never be an entrepreneur. And I had that entrepreneurial itch because I left the farm, but it wasn't enough for me on the good capitalist, hope springs eternal kind of way. It wasn't good enough for me. I just didn't want to end up being some sort of middle manager at some company and basically die in obscurity. I just didn't want to. Yeah. I just didn't want to. But I'm like, if I got to be probably like your company, it's got to be terrifying to drag a camera around to trade shows and approach people like, hey, you want to be on camera? Let's talk. Let's talk at a trade show with all this stuff going on from your farm. You're launching out from your farm. You're traveling. It takes some gumption. Yes. It takes a lot. That's like the 1% or the 5%, right? Yeah, gotta push. But I knew that if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I'd really have to perform on the front stage. Now, the really funny part is it's a double-edged sword. I look at some other businesses and they're doing tremendous business under the radar without any of that on the front stage. There's much less risk probably flying under the radar. But on the other hand, I just felt like you're never going to have that reach unless you really step out. And that's today's world we live in. Yes. We're not as connected as we used to be on some levels, but we're more connected on others, pros and cons. You got to take the good with the bad. Today, if you're not a business that's on social media, I'm telling you, I went and talked to some car salespeople, and I said, look, guys, 20 years ago, my car salesman, he had me in for a sales talk. I think he just wants me to be easy on the next deal, right? Okay. Stroke my ego type thing. But anyways, I said, guys, we had 50 people in the room. I'm like, how many of you are going to pick up this device and do business with it today? Because 20 years ago in the car business, you had to be that guy in the used car lot. No, you had to go on TV, you had to pay $8,000 a slot or whatever it was. I don't know what it is. Some people think I'm a used car salesman, maybe. Do I sound like it?
No,
right?
No.
But if I was a used car salesman like 20 years ago, I'd have to go pay big bucks to be on the camera.
Yes.
And I'd have to be a bigger than life, outlandish type cartoon character. Right. Who does that sound like? Well, not like that. I'm not like that, am I?
No, not at all.
But so here's the deal. Now it's in your pocket.
Yeah.
And I made up an acronym like FAM or something, like free automated advertising machine. FAM. FAM.
Nice.
In your pocket.
Yes.
You can use this anytime.
Yes.
So I'm like, get it out, hit the record button, like talking to it, tell people who you are and what you do and what you care about and why they should do business with you in the most authentic way possible. Stop it.
It's unbelievable.
Load it up. We can talk to our customers 24/7.
Yeah.
You can get people to know and like you and trust you before they ever buy anything from you on social media.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can tell your stories. People are telling amazing stories about love and loss and adventure and whatever else they want to. I don't know.
Absolutely.
And like the different platforms are become so intimate, like stories is so intimate. I mean, some of these influencers, probably that fellow you interviewed today, the Minneapolis or
Minnesota millennial farmer. The stories are so intimate. All of a sudden you're plugged into somebody else's life and you're watching what they're doing in the strangest ways. You're like, am I really watching this? Is this really a thing? But this is so fascinating, kind of interesting. I know this person, then when you meet them in person, it's like, what? You know, you're way taller. I watched 3 of his videos this morning.
Right.
And I'm sitting here going, what a world we live in. I mean, he does a phenomenal job. Having a camera in his hand just seems so natural to him. Obviously, as he said, it wasn't that way in the beginning, just like it is for everybody. But I just connected. I felt I knew him. So actually, when I sat down with him and we were doing this interview, it's like I already knew him. And that's how amazing. He's grown such a great following, how you've grown such a great following, right? That's how we connect. Yeah. And the power's on your phone. So
to bookend that story there regarding overcoming your fears that I really want everybody to know is possible. You know, I researched, like, can you get medication to make you more calm? Can you, all the different, like, I was ready for anything that would help me overcome my fear of public speaking.
That's frustrating, eh?
4 years of Toastmasters, baby.
That's
4 years of Toastmasters. So, for me, I understand how people kind of look at maybe like being on social media as like, however you view it.
Yeah.
For me, it was a really long journey to get to be able to do what we did with the podcast, the social media, promoting our company, being here, being able to do this. I went to Toastmasters at Thursdays, 7 a.m. in Brandon, like every week for 4 years. But it wasn't very long after I did that. I think there's a cycle when it comes to gaining courage and capabilities in your life. Okay.
Really?
Absolutely. Actually, I know what it is, and a lot of it comes from Strategic Coach. So I'm going to impart it now, no charge for this.
I was going to say, share.
Like building up to this.
Yes,
whoa.
Love it.
So it's called the 4 C's, and so you start out making a commitment, right? So I made one of the biggest commitments I ever made was to show up that first day and just be absolutely terrified. Like, I'm voluntarily doing the thing that I'm most afraid of in life, like clinically disabled.
Yeah.
At doing clinical, physical anxiety attacks.
I can feel the fear for you right now.
I'm getting a little my hair sticking up on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
But I committed. I showed up that day. The next thing is the courage to follow through with it. It's no different than with the podcast. Is the same thing. You have to commit to doing it.
Yeah.
You got to get the courage to follow through with it, and that's a critical point too, because you can commit to doing it, but if you don't commit publicly, it's pretty easy to give up.
Right.
And that's why we got to forgive all those people that are doing the losing 100 pounds or working out all the time on the they're doing the right thing. We shouldn't look at that like, hey, why are they?
They're phenomenal.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you commit publicly, the courage part becomes easier because, baby, you're in the pipeline.
Yeah,
there ain't no going back, right? So that's the right thing to do to create the conditions that you're not relying on willpower, you're relying on your own chain.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's it going, brother? Sorry.
He knows everybody.
So then what do we have? We had commit, courage, and then the next thing that comes through doing all this is your capability. I know I'm terrible at the podcast, but I'm hoping to get better by like the 50th episode, something that grows. You probably sense you're getting a lot better over time doing these interviews, a lot more comfortable. Your capability comes. You gain new capabilities doing these things.
It's just like, I got to jump in there really quick, okay?
Jump in really quick.
It's my show. I can do this.
It's your show. You're totally in control. I submit.
Nice. Why isn't it always that easy? Love it.
Oh, she wants to talk now.
Oh, now I completely lost my train of thought. No, it's just like, and I love this conversation. I really do love psychology. That's actually what I love.
I can make up stuff about psychology for
I love
until
it.
your camera runs out.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. But it's just like with children. When they're learning to walk, you don't give them one chance to walk, right? When they're learning something new, like you said, with skill, you let them walk and fall and stumble, and they walk until they can finally walk. And people, when they're adults, they forget, they expect to be great at everything right away. They forget that we got to learn skills as an adult, right?
In today's world, when I grew up, they threw in the rain barrel. If you didn't come up to the top,
sink or swim, literally. Okay, take it back.
So there's commit.
Okay, commit.
Courage. It's good if you commit publicly.
Commit publicly.
Then you have to have the courage to follow through. There ain't no going back.
Okay, courage.
Develop the capabilities along the way.
Capability.
And then you have the confidence to go do the next thing. So for me, it was literally like learn how to public speak, learn how to be on camera, learn how to push hard on social media, learn how to be on camera and do the video thing. And for me, it's like now it's a thrill. Can I speak on bigger and bigger stages? I got asked by a new startup. I'm just honored. Crystal McKay and Maggie started up
Loft 32.
Loft 32. I'm just like, I'm kind of at that stage where I'm like, me. But I love going on the stage now. Like when I do feel butterflies, it's kind of an honor because I know that I'm stretching and doing something that I couldn't do before.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you go in front of 500 people, it's like, okay, I might be a little bit scared, but it's going to translate to some crazy energy. Because I'm really getting to the point where, I started out, my first speech in Toastmasters about myself was like a 5-minute thing that I read off a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Now I can go for an hour. I can bookend a few memorable points at the beginning and the end, have a few Winston Churchill quotes, and then just like lay it down.
Nice.
With 3 main points.
That's skill.
Improvise the whole thing in between, and I really love that. That's fun. So, anyways, I guess hopefully that's a story of gradients of overcoming your fear, because then you're always looking for the next thing of like, what's gonna make me what am I gonna be afraid of doing? And this is new for me because usually I'm interviewing or I have this is a new format for me, is being interviewed too.
Nice.
So it's doing some reps here today. It feels great. Thanks for having me.
And then don't we go right back? Don't we go to the
beginning,
right back to the top, and then you go through and you're always going through the 4 C's?
Absolutely. And the confidence can be fatal if you think you're done, because you'll get knocked back. Like if you're not humble enough going into the next thing going, boy, doesn't matter what kind of success I've had doing anything else, doing this new thing is going to be just as hard as everything else was.
Yeah.
And thank God though, because that's what really builds a character for us, right? Like I really believe that you gotta, you can have adversity in your life and you don't wish it on anybody. And some people have gone through some really incredibly hard.
Absolutely.
I just talked to somebody who lost their spouse like a couple months ago. I mean, it's right.
That hits you in the gut.
You got to wake up and the sun comes in the window. You got all your limbs. You got all your faculties for the most part.
Yes.
Most days, 80% you're there.
Yeah.
You got to wake up and go, man, thank the Lord that I'm alive and I can do this again today. I can fight. Even if we have challenges like no rain and bumps in the road and talking to the bank or whatever. Hey, we built a business in 4 years from 0 to 60. I've been through a lot of that pain too. I go through that pain still, and I love and respect entrepreneurs. That's why we started the podcast, and why I want to share some of these stories about overcoming your fears. So
I love it because sometimes it's easy, and kind of like social media too. We see the highlight reel. We see the best of everybody. Their life looks amazing, but we don't know what it took to get there. We think it's an overnight sensation. We don't know all the work and the hustle that goes on behind the scenes to create that. So I like having real conversations with entrepreneurs doing great things.
That's why you should have Nickelback on.
They're next.
They're the overnight success that took 20 years to get there.
Yeah, I had to have you first.
They have a lot of hits. We're
going with who's more famous, right? So they're going to come after.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there's a really interesting paradigm I've been thinking about a lot lately, Tracy, given current events in my life, personally and professionally, and it's how we view opportunities versus challenges, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like a little puppy dog. I get really excited. Like when I start thinking about opportunities, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the next big thing. Like this is going to send our company to the moon. You know, we're just going to be endowed with all kinds of blessings, and you know, we're not going to have any more problems. We're going to solve our problems, and this is the best thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
Except that those opportunities typically never live up to our expectations. Always a disappointment to some degree. You never get happiness out of that next thing. Like you get to a certain point in life where you realize it's not any kind of like acquisition or success on any kind of level that's actually going to make you happy, and that should be pretty evident in a society where we're truly the 1%.
We don't
we're just like
that.
miserable about it.
You keep on going after the next thing, the next thing.
And that's capitalism, and we don't want to totally quell that, you know, spirit of our pioneering ancestors. Because everybody who came to Canada had some kind of balls, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
God bless our ancestors.
Absolutely.
But what if it wasn't opportunities that we should be getting really excited about, but it's rather challenges that we should look at, have the seed of opportunity in them? Because the challenges, you don't know what is the gift in that challenge. You know, we only got better through the toughest circumstances in our business and our lives. You know, that's when you really have to buckle down. It's like when things are really good and really easy, that's when your character flies off the rail.
Amen.
That's why you should give back that lottery ticket. No, that winning lottery ticket, just give it. I'll be the steward of the winning lottery ticket for you.
Over.
But you know, it just helps even one out when you consider that maybe the opportunity isn't all that you thought it would be in a bag of chips, and maybe the challenge actually has a lot of like hidden seeds of the next level that you didn't understand until it happened to you. Kicked the crap out of you, left you wounded, bleeding, crying, and telling a bad story on social media, but you come back for more. Everybody cares so much, but no, I think it's something to it's something to calibrate to. At least that's the coaching I've been giving to myself.
You paid a lot of money to learn this.
I talk to myself a lot. Yeah, you know, psychology. No,
my therapist said.
Well, listen, here's the deal too. Something we should probably touch on is the advisors that we have, like with the business. Okay, and this is another thing, like another theme, I guess, that we could maybe help producers with if you're in a situation where you know it's hard to read the contents of the bottle from inside the bottle. It's hard to read the label, you know, when you're inside the bottle. So if you have people that come in and can help you, it's pretty amazing what can happen. So we have a couple small business advisors helping us with our business. I haven't even talked about our business.
No, I was going to say, can you share a little bit about that? I wanted you to.
The advisors or the business?
The business.
Okay, let's start with the business.
Yeah.
So Aberhart Ag Solutions was formed essentially to bring a really unique, environmentally friendly fertilizer to the market. With the fertilizer has a ton of advantages for producers, and we formed it right around that product, and we've grown that for the last 4 years. So through my brother's connections in the agronomic world and the farming world, some buddies of his, some colleagues of his from Alberta brought this product to him and said, like, hey, we got this sulfur thing, we're looking for other people to help bring it to the market. What do you think of it? Terry had been using ElementalSulfur for many years previously. This is just sort of an evolution of that practice. And so what it was, there's a small town farm boy from Saskatchewan, of course, that invented this product by putting two different things together in a very simple way, creating something that's greater than the sum of parts. It's compost and ElementalSulfur. So the ElementalSulfur is a byproduct of the oil and gas field, of course. There's 100 million tons of it produced around the world that's used in all kinds of mining and manufacturing, but about 10 million tons of it annually is essentially a waste product and has to go to landfill for whatever reason.
Really?
It's off-spec sulfur.
Okay.
Right? And then you have compost, which is, especially since a lot of cities are going to move towards a more greener outlook and be recycling yard waste, grocery waste, whatever it is that they would normally send to a landfill, this is now going to get composted. So these are two big real-world issues that we're combining into a solution for farmers that's low cost, logistically sound, agronomically incredibly advantageous, and environmentally environmentally friendly, something we can tell our city cousins about.
Excellent. I wanted to know more about it.
Yeah, so you put the elemental sulfur together with the compost. The compost reduces the dusting and the risk of explosion that's normally associated with the manufactured elemental sulfur. You know, that's part of the issue with elemental sulfur. Agronomically, it converts to the sulfate form of the nutrient that the plants need in the soil through good growing conditions, the right temperature, oxygen, moisture levels, and all that good stuff. Biological activity, folks. We're going to hear more about that stuff.
High school all over again. This is fantastic.
And so, the compost is a really low-cost carrier to the elemental sulfur, and it's allowed us to scale it onto hundreds of thousands of acres. The price point of the actual pound of sulfur is half to a third of what you pay for a manufactured sulfur product.
Oh wow!
It's a low salt index, you know, so you don't have to worry about putting a bunch of salt with your seed row, like typical AMS. We got these $1 million drills now that we're typically putting a bunch of AMS through, plugging, you start losing time. Terry, we had a webinar the other day about tissue testing, and Terry commented that, $50,000 a day of products going through one of those seeders on the farm.
Wow.
So if you're plugged and you're down, you're fighting with, AMS, that's a big productivity issue. It's a bulk issue. Seeding days are always an issue, tight seeding windows.
Yes.
We got guys in our network that are spreading a lot of their nutrients on and now, and they're just basically putting either, FOS and seed or just seed through their seeders. So you can take the same seeder and you can do 60 acres of filler, you can do 400.
Oh wow.
Right? And so this is a great nutrient for putting on top. You put it on top of the soil surface for extremely high rates, and what we get is something that lasts 4, 5, 6 years.
Really?
In one application.
Wow.
And so this fall we'll break 1 million acres sold, spread, and applied of this product. So if you think about a 5-year product, and we're kind of been an outlier. In the beginning, we were just trying to gain as much reach as we could. We're working with people in our network. Now we're hoping to make it more and more professional with, the independent retailers that we, really respect and want them to come on and build a business with us. We want to keep evolving the product to reach more acres, right, for the people that have the market. It's just it's a great sustainability story. I think the weight and the pressure and the momentum of history is going to be behind something like this, or a product like Crystal Green, where you're recycling phosphorus out of waterways.
Okay.
I feel like it's inevitable that when we have such a massive opportunity in the circular economy, like it's such a massive scale, like it's tens of thousands of tons that we're recycling onto farmers' fields to grow food.
It's fantastic.
You can't turn away from that kind of thing. That kind of thing doesn't go away. I understand the economics of recycling can be difficult at sometimes, and it can drop below the threshold at which, maybe we should just make it new again. But this has offered a huge opportunity for producers for a sulfur source, and I think there's going to be more things like that. And the really cool thing about where our company is getting to now is, since we've had this blessing and opportunity with Biosol to bring it to the market on behalf of the manufacturer, we've had other manufacturers that are getting started in the market or want to reach new markets coming and saying, well, you guys were really good and calibrated in telling the story of the circular economy, or talking about soil health, or I'd like to think our reach almost gets to the consumer, right? I get to dance on boardroom tables and set myself on fire in video to get there, but it's like, hey, we want to reach consumers too with our stories. Like, you know what, guys? Like, the story that I'd really like to get to consumers is like, hey guys, slow down here. I get it, but just take a moment and think about this. Half of the nitrogen nutrient in your body, which is critical to you for life, among other nutrients, but nitrogen, half of it is synthesized through a process called the HaberBosch Process, right? Half of the nutrients in our body, half of the people on planet Earth are completely dependent on Fritz Haber in 1908 coming up with synthesizing nitrogen out of the atmosphere.
Okay.
If we didn't have that, and hence all of modern agriculture that followed after that, you would not have the ability to sit in Starbucks, drink a $6 latte, and tweet about how bad farmers are, right? Let's just acknowledge that oil and agriculture form the foundation of civilization, and your ability to have free speech in a democratic country where we're all protected to say whatever we want.
Amen to that.
Right?
Amen to that. Yes.
So that's where we're going to have that red wine and rare steak later.
Nice. Well,
because of the HaberBosch process.
Yeah, exactly. That is a worthy.
But we should do better. The other problem with nitrogen is, it goes off into the atmosphere, it goes into the water. People people on the other side of the equation are worried about pollution and stuff like that. I just think be patient. We're getting better all the time, and there's going to be technologies that completely revolutionize things like we can't even imagine right now. You know, people talk about regenerative ag. Well, what's the solution to regenerative ag? I mean, bugs in a jug and all that good stuff, but automation can do all that. Automation can move cows around in an intensive grazing optimum situation. Automation can seed the optimum configuration of a whole bunch of different species of plants and pick them too, so we don't have to worry about separating them out from the combine.
Absolutely.
You know, automation can get rid of compaction and tillage and herbicides.
Yes.
Insecticides. It's pretty cool.
Neat.
So be patient. We're getting there. But in the meantime, we got to put some stuff in your car to get you to the restaurant to eat your steak with the nice red wine.
And on that note, we are so very fortunate to be in the first world condition.
First world problems, baby.
Complaining about our first world problems. But we'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's coming along.
That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I was wondering more about your company and your product.
Absolutely.
You were talking about your advisors.
So cool. Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah. So I think we covered the biosol thing and AberhartAgSolutions.ca.
I'll allow that. I won't chop that.
Well, I just feel like maybe we didn't do enough for the company and the product and everything and our great dealer network.
Okay.
Like we have an amazing dealer. Like we have one of the coolest things about building the company before we get into the advisors has been the tribe, right? Okay. Building businesses basically from scratch, something that completely never existed before with people that are incredibly strong at farming, agronomy, logistics, spreading. It's been amazing. Right, and I really view it like a tribe of people that come together that are, similar thinking, with a little bit of like change the world thrown in there in the mix.
Nice.
But when it comes to running the business, obviously, so I had to learn how to get good on being on the front stage and gather courage to do that. But there's elements of business that maybe I'm not as strong at. For example, the financials might be one of them. I heard Murad Al-Tib speak the other day, and he's like, one thing in business you got to be really, really good at is like knowing the financials and knowing the numbers, right? Yeah. And I get that, but that's not technically my strength. So what I look at is, okay, what is my unique ability? Well, my unique ability is to connect with people and bring them into our cause. And I don't ever think now of how am I going to do something in this business. I think of who is the person that I can work with to make things happen, right? Nice. And so in September, we had some serious challenges in the company on different levels, and to facilitate change, we brought in a couple of small business advisors that just absolutely done so much for our business, specialized in certain areas that have completely changed our business and made it so much stronger, and just help you navigate, help you make decisions. And it's one of those things. It's like when you get faith or you get fitness or something of that nature, you want to share it with other people. That's kind of
Yes.
Sometimes it's a bit much. It's like, whoa, man, like I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. to do burpees. You can, that's good. You can put it on social media, but I'm not doing that,
I'll expect a 4 a.m. burpee post from you next week.
I will work on it. You can edit it in. But yeah, you need people that are good at what they're good at, and you need to be able to do what you're going to do if you're really going to scale. I mean, if you want to, I think being self-employed, which a lot of farmers are, is probably the hardest spot to be, because you're doing everything yourself, right?
Absolutely.
But I think in today's age, with all the specialization and great skills that people have in all kinds of different areas, and how much people want to help, just asking. So my brother is the greatest example of this. I don't just speak as somebody, sometimes I feel like, man, I don't want to preach at farmers about anything, because I don't farm. They got their own set of problems, but we're all human here. I think what I look to for the farming, when I speak to the farming community, I like to use my brother as an example. So my brother is farming 15,000 acres back at home with Dad, and I talked about how my dad was always working off the farm growing up, but my brother took the reins and said, Harvey, let's make a business. We can do this. Come back, work full-time in the business, and they grew the farm 10x, okay?
Wow, good
1,500 acres to 15,000. But it's not like they didn't go through any rough times, and here I am telling my brother's story. He should probably do his own episode. He's probably like, oh, Dad's talking about me again on social media. But, they had some tough times where it's like they had to dig deep to get to the tough times. When you expand, it's hard. You get, you're pushing hard.
Tough.
Yeah.
for so many
They took the risk. They took the risk and expanded, and here they are. You know, things are going good X amount of years later. But they had that moment where they had to dig deep to prove to themselves and the banker.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old bankers.
And the banker.
Yeah.
That we can do this, and we should go on. We deserve to go on, right? And that's where we get back to the opportunities and challenges. Is going to talk to your banker like a huge challenge, or is it the biggest opportunity that you have in tough times?
It's funny, some of the podcasts I listen to, and I can't remember who said this, but it just hit me between the eyes. Where is it said that it's supposed to be easy? How did we figure that life is supposed to be easy? Why do we figure that building a business is supposed to be easy? It's not. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that we live with that illusion, it probably keeps us going, one, right?
Absolutely.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
But I think it is also our enemy, just like you said, the way we view things. If we set out and said we're in business, it's difficult, and we're working through challenges, and that's what business is. Wouldn't we take a lot of pressure off ourselves?
This is what it's all about.
Yeah, instead of going, I'm in business, why are there so many things going on? And then putting more stress because you're thinking it's supposed to be perfect.
Well, and the reason that I wanted to be in business is because, okay, freedom of relationships, freedom of purpose, freedom of money, and freedom of time. Well, I can tell you which four I've exceeded at, and well, none of them really. I mean, it's
people don't
all
know
challenged
until you get
Absolutely.
in. Because you're always putting so much money to grow the business, the capital,
it's incredibly hard.
The amount of time,
Incredibly hard.
the oh my goodness. We all know, farmers know.
Well, and I love that you're sharing that too, because doing what you're doing now and having a farm.
Yeah.
Isn't it those challenges that made you who you are? Like, isn't it your success is because of those failures
Absolutely.
or put yourself in those positions?
Totally.
Like, nobody who ever did anything got there without failing
And
multiple times.
Sometimes, I'm using air quotes for the people that are listening to the podcast, but sometimes those failures are actually what can pivot us.
Huge.
In the right direction, right?
Yep, absolutely.
They're a bit of a road sign, and then you pivot, and then you have to go a different direction. And then somehow it just leads you to the next thing, right? The right moves you need to make in business.
I really believe you got to put yourself into those situations. Like, anytime as an entrepreneur that you get to that point where like your ideas and reality match, then you get to like a zone of like, oh, you pop out of the water, you're up on the board, you're not like, it's actually easy, and it's kind of good for a while, but you're like, I can't go much further down the lake without doing a 360 and like smash my head on the water. That's just who I am. I gotta try something until I can do that 360.
And then, right? Because in business and life, you're always in momentum. You're either going forward and growing, or if you're sitting still, you're going backwards.
Growth is so critical, and I believe that's true in agriculture as well. Like, if you aren't growing and trying out new things all of the time, if you're not stretching and learning and open to new things, I think more and more things are going to happen really fast, in terms of changes. But I don't think it's anything new.
No.
Like when the tractors came out, I was like, I'm not going to be running anything with steel wheels here. I got my horses. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
When texting came out, I didn't want to do business by texting. I'm like, I'm never giving a quote on a John Deere sprayer. I'm never going to say it's 80 grand. Well, we can't get much for 80 grand anymore. It's probably like $500,000. But, I was like, I'm never doing business by text. It was just a matter of principle. We resisted new technology.
I remember my first work phone. Yeah. I'm not going to let this rule my life.
StarTAC, or was it bag phone?
Well, no, I'm not that old. Come on.
Can I still call you on the old bag phone? You're not that old.
We actually had a bag phone. We did. But my first actual business work phone where I started getting connected and tied to it would have been the BlackBerry. I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing rule my life.
This is so awkward. I didn't know that I was doing a video interview with a millennial here. Like,
I'm not that young. I'm young. I'm right at the brink here, but not.
Never seen a bag phone.
Yeah. No, I know. We had a bag phone
on the farm, right?
Yeah.
On the dash of the F-150.
Anthony actually used to be an outfitter.
Oh.
And he used to work for other outfitters, so he had a bag phone when he'd go out into the middle of nowhere. to be able to
He's
actually...
like Gordon Gekko with the satellite phone.
Yeah, to call home. So anyways,
Okay, so advisors, we got a couple small business advisors helping us, but one of the things that I think anybody can do is set up a board of advisors.
Okay.
And you can do it for very little money, secret amounts of money, like.
Okay.
And it's great if you can. So, talking about my dad and my brother on the farm, they got to the point where they had to like dig deep and show that they could kind of go on with gusto in the business. And that was when they first brought in, whatever year it was, it's not my story to tell, but I'm telling you anyways, board of advisors. Terry went out and asked a bunch of key people in his life, and this is one of Terry's strengths. You know, he's part of the AgriTrend network. He had Rob Sake, CEO of AgriTrend, has been on the farm board forever. You know, Rick Pattison from Pattison Liquid Systems, a bunch of great guys.
Wow.
So I think what happens is, yeah, that's 4 different board members. And so when Aberhart Ag Solutions started, you know, evolving into something much bigger than we ever imagined it could be. Like we started out thinking, oh, okay, we're going to sell, 50,000 acres of biosoil or something and spread it. And we did all the math and okay, well, we can, that was before we had any employees or any, big, marketing budget and stuff like that. It was a really light footprint. It was like, oh, we could probably make a live. Like I could probably pay myself out of this somehow, potentially. Or Dad'll take care. No, I'm just kidding. Dad's never bailed me out. But anyways, with my brother, he did a really good job of setting up this board of advisors for the farm. We saw how functional it was and how critical it was for the farm. He did the same thing for Aberhart Ag Solutions.
Okay.
So we have an amazing board of advisors that we get together once a year. We try and give them quarterly updates, on what's happening with the business. We get together once a year, and they are really there to tell you some of the more difficult things that maybe you don't want to hear, that you need to focus on, that aren't sexy at all. Because my experience was I was going to ShamWow, I'm going to say, guys, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I got this idea, and we're going to this on the front stage, and they're just like look down their kind of noses and over their glasses and say like, what? No. Here's the areas of risk that you have in your business. Like them having, and we don't, part of the formula is, get advice from people who have done it.
Right.
Right? Because everybody has, you ask me a question in any given area.
Different areas of a business.
I might not have
so
experience.
Many different areas. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
A business owner cannot be the best at every single one of those areas.
Well, it's really nice if you have a board of advisor too that complements like different areas of expertise. Like we have someone, like I said, would have more of an agronomic focus.
Right.
They're all business people.
Their strengths.
But it's weird. Like we got a kind of a corporate lawyer background, but he also has retail and a couple large farms. Corporate banking, but he grew a John Deere dealership, agronomy, networking, like a whole bunch of different perspectives to bring into that. But what I think is super functional is, especially on a farm, like it's one thing with it in Aberhart Ag too, because we're a family business. The business is owned by myself and my brother and my dad. Okay. So it's that buffer of communication between us and the advisory board and each other that's really functional. And so, there might have been a year on the farm when the advisory board said, okay, you guys aren't in a position to like buy anything. Okay. And you know how that goes. You set out like January 1st, we're not going to buy any tractors, combines, sprayers, weed whackers, nothing. This is the year we can't do anything. But then of course your salesman comes out and you're like leaning over the back of the half ton. It's kind of a nice day. He's like, what do you need next? We're not buying anything. We're not buying anything this year. Yeah, but what do you need next? What do you really, well, the tractor probably could, we could get the Trelleborgs or whatever. And then he comes back 3 days later and the deal's on the table, and it's like, well, but we could, blah, blah. But if you have somebody outside of you saying, there's no money, there's no cash, there's no capital, or you shouldn't do that, or that's not on plan.
That's not the best move for this year.
And frankly, it's really shitty to have 4 people saying like you shouldn't do something that you want to do. Hey, it ain't that much fun. I am not selling anyone here on the joys of this. It's not a fun thing. Yeah. It's not like going for like red wine and rare steak. Yes. Like we were talking about later tonight, right? But it's so functional. It's so good. I'd highly recommend it for anybody. I really believe, especially like if the business is in a place where you really need help. Yeah. You could ask anyone that's ahead of you in life. And I really believe there's a paradigm there. And I hope I get there to be able to like pay it forward to somebody else anybody asks me for help of any kind of that nature, I just would do everything I can. And these guys, I think, they get a lot out of it. I don't want to oversell it because, as the business becomes successful and stuff, there should be compensation involved, and there's differences between a board of advisors and a board of directors, and probably Elaine Fraze could like more tangible
that
structure.
Would be a good episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She can probably tell you, or there's people out there that can describe, like a board of directors is different than a board of advisors, because a board of advisors or directors will be legally beholden to the decisions that they make on behalf of the company. So there's liability and there's paperwork and all that stuff.
Yes.
Board of advisors, you just better take their advice because they're taking their time to give you it, and they don't want to deal with people that aren't coachable.
Right.
Like, what if they tell you to do a bunch of stuff and you ignore it for a year and you come back and your company's in a worse spot, but did you take our advice? No. Well, how many times are they going to show up? But I think there's an element of wanting to give back. I think there's an element of wanting to see a young company succeed. I think there's an element of them being able to network with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all super successful, interesting, fun people, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got this incredible dynamic of this opportunity to be able to sit with people that are, for me, so much more incredibly successful than I've been in my life, and wealthy on a whole bunch of levels, that I can really look to them and try and rein in some of my crazier impulses. And I wouldn't want to give away all of my entrepreneurial quick start for the world. I cherish it and I embrace it. But there's hell to pay on a regular basis, Tracy, I'm telling you. Like, it's just so painful.
Oh, shoot.
And now I'm getting to the point where I can be self-aware enough to say, oh, I think I'm doing it again. And I talk to advisors and they're like, yeah. And they kind of just let me go through the cycle.
Yeah.
We all recognize it. But as long as I'm like, got my like straight jacket on, I can't actually bounce up against the rubber room and hurt myself.
You sound like an entrepreneur. Let's just sum that up.
Serial entrepreneur.
That is excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that, because, there might be some people out in the audience too that have thought about that, right? And sometimes we are afraid to ask for help or form that board, right? Because then we admit that we don't know everything. So
can I give a practical tip on that too?
Yeah.
Again, I didn't have the courage to set up our board. I did not physically have the courage to it. Terry's like, we should get an advisory board. We should get an advisory board for Aberhart. Yeah, no, we should. But at some point I said, Terry, I don't think I can do this myself. I literally can't. It's really uncomfortable for me. Can you do this for Aberhart Ag? And he did. And so I would say to anybody who's having that challenge, like, find somebody who's that person who's connected enough to, like, well, who do you think should be on their board, or what can we do here? And they can go out and they can set up that board and they can facilitate it. It's all about the who's, not the how. It's not about how you're going to set up an advisory board. It's who can help you set up. Because how many farmers, it's like their core skill to set up an advisory board to tell them what not to do.
True. Very few.
There's no hands in the audience going up right now.
Right.
In the virtual world, I don't think.
Our big audience.
Like this post.
Yes. So true.
But I think that's absolutely critical as farms get so deep into the mire now with the overhead and the capital and the
farms are big.
The quagmire of decisions to make. Products, cost per acre.
It's not like it used to be.
She's a wild game.
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be, but it's also kind of like it always is, because we worry about basically kind of the same things. Like, the only constant's going to be change. And if you think, we have people in our lives right now that have experienced the horse and plow and the steel tractor and the rubber tire tractor and the GPS, and they're going to experience artificial intelligence farming all in the same lifetime. So true. Hopefully I didn't see the tractors.
I knew you were old.
I used to take my high school sweetheart out to the thresher, the threshing machine behind the
How
the trees.
romantic.
It was very romantic.
On that note, I think we should wrap up this episode.
Bring it home.
I like how you did end that with the point about change. It seems like it's always different, but it is really always the same, right? It's clever. And, I appreciate you sharing your experience, because I love the real conversations where people share the truth, right? Not just the highlight reels. and you have made a name for yourself. You've made a company, so I appreciate you sharing that with our audience.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you so much.
Awesome to be on your show. Good work. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.